Hello, and welcome to the second chapter variety show, where we mix cosmic magic with a whole lot of business mastery. I'm your host, Hunter Louder, your friendly guide to business astrology, here to help you navigate your career's second act with the wisdom of the stars and innovative business strategies. Whether you're new to astrology or have been stargazing since day one, this podcast is your go-to for discovering who you truly are and aligning your business with your unique astrological blueprint. We're going to get real about what actions to take to build a perfect fit business. Each week, you can expect a mix of cosmic insights, practical business tips, and lots of laughter. Whether I'm chatting with guests who've embraced their own second chapters or diving into astro business wisdom, there's always something you can take away and apply to your own business. Welcome to the Second Chapter Society Business Astrology Variety Show. Today we're talking with Shannon Gallagher, a spiritual business coach, about the importance of balancing masculine and feminine energy in business. If you're looking to bring more spiritual tools into your entrepreneurial journey, Shannon's story and expertise will give you exactly what you need to get started. By listening today, you'll learn how Shannon has built her business around spiritual practices like yoga, tarot, energy healing, and more to create balance and alignment. So stick around until the end because I'll be sharing a juicy tip on how to integrate spirituality into your own business, no matter where you are on your journey. So let's dive in.
Yay,
Shannon.
thank you. Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm doing really well.
Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start first because I think the fact that you're on my show right now is such a great story of like synchronicities in the online world. I think when I first got started in online business, I thought it was just so huge. How are you going to know anybody? Because I came from brick and mortar, like in a small town where I knew everyone knew me, I knew like all their connections, and it was just really great for business because you could just get referrals. And then I moved into the online business space, which I'm like, okay, billions of people across the entire globe. How am I ever going to meet people? And then you meet people that are just have all these connections with you, like these random things that come together. So Shannon and I actually connected through Haley with Espresso Podcast Productions, who did my podcast launch and also produces my podcast. And she's like, oh my gosh, you two are both such spiritual business people. You should connect. And so then I looked at Shannon's link in bio, and she has a retreat coming up in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I was like, is that where you live? Or is that just where your retreat is taking place? And she's like, oh, that's where I live. And so I lived there my freshman year in college. When I went to Haverford College, which you said you currently live like right next door to, right?
Down the
Yeah,
street.
down the street. And then my husband's from Philadelphia, from the northeast part of Philadelphia.
I grew up there. My boyfriend's from there. Everybody I know, we all are in that area all the time. It really is so weird in the coolest way that we somehow connected around our location when you literally live across the country now.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I've found that to happen a lot in the online business space. Like you meet people that you know that are from where you're from, that have their favorite restaurant is your favorite restaurant. It's just this so bizarre scenario for all of those people out there listening who in online business or starting an online business. I think at first it can feel a little bit lonely when you get out of that. Like, well, how am I going to talk to people? Or where am I going to see them? And it's like, just give it time. Your people will come to you. They'll be naturally just attracted to you. They'll be in your space, and after a while, you're just like, wow, this is super normal just to meet people that have connections with me from across the country, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something that you can find, in relation to each other. So I personally am a big fan of finding people that are familiar with my area. Philly is like very much like a diehard fan club. And so finding out people are from Philly or went to school in the area or even, are sports fans or anything like that for the Eagles or Phillies or whatever, it's always a big deal to me. So it was really cool to hear that even though we work virtually, we can still find these connections with people online.
Absolutely. That's so funny you said diehard fan clubs. It makes me think about the bad rap that Philadelphia fans get from all their sports. And people are like, oh, do they really
Mhm.
do that? Do they really do that? I'm like, they're just misunderstood. You guys don't get it. They're just very passionate about their sports teams and everything else. And
Yes.
so originally I'm from Alabama and I moved to Philadelphia, and that was like quite the culture shock of like going from super polite and super like, calm and smiley and hi, how are you, to like, no one looks at you, no one talks to you. But then when you get to know them, like they are like the nicest people you can possibly imagine. Like it's such a cool, I don't know, the culture of Philadelphia and all the different neighborhoods. Like, I just love it. Actually, it's a big reason I live in San Diego now because I love that neighborhood feel, how every area has like a different, but it also feels really small town. Even though it's a huge city,
Yeah.
Philadelphia and San Diego, it's like super laid back, like everybody's very chill. And then people, like you said, just love where they're from, which I love as well.
Yeah. Definitely. Passion's a really good word to describe everybody from Philadelphia or around the
Mhm.
area.
Awesome. Well, to get started today, like I normally do, I would love to do a little mini astrology reading for you, not only to give you some insight, but then, of course, with people listening who have similar placements, also gives them a little bit of information. And so we look at your big three, which is your sun, your moon, and your rising. So I'm going to do a little screen share action here and show your lovely chart. So
Yes.
like, it looks exactly like me. So I love looking at charts. It's like we all have, of course, very unique charts. But for Shannon to get started, she has her sun in Scorpio in the third house, and she has her moon in Aquarius in the sixth house. And then the rising sign is in Leo right here. So the rising sign is always going to be in that first house of self and identity. So Scorpio sun, I love Scorpios. I used to be terrified of them, but then as I dove into it more. I was like, no, they're really cool. They're just very okay, similar to Philadelphia fans. They're very passionate, very intense. But sometimes they get kind of a bad rap for all that intensity. So again, Scorpio Sun gives you a credible natural intensity, a drive, and you're really passionate about transformation. So there is no surface level conversation with you. How's your cat? Like, where are you from? You're like, no, let's talk about the deep taboo subjects that no one wants to talk about. That's what I'm there for. Does that resonate with you?
I was just talking to my closest friends about this the other day, and it'll take the group of us, even though we've been best friends since we were, like, 14 years
Uh-huh.
old, it'll take the group of us a little while to kind of get comfortable, and as soon as we're comfortable, we talk about the things, and I'm like, "If anybody else was listening to this, they would be really freaked out about, like, the opinions that we have and the deepness that we're getting into with every single
Mhm.
topic." It really is but to me, there's it's it comes out through, like, loyalty with Scorpio, like, I'm gonna be loyal to those people that I feel really connected with, and personally, the way that I think that I transform is through the way that I communicate and collaborate with
Mhm.
people, and Scorpio being in my 3rd house of communication, I think that definitely makes sense there.
Yeah.
Having these deep conversations is how I'm transforming and how everybody else with me is also transforming.
Absolutely. And then within your business, yes, I really focus on business astrology too. It's like, how do you align your business in a way that works for you? And so you're not going to be like this bubblegum coach that's just like, airy fairy like ideas. You're like, no, this is all about transformation, like deep topics and things that are, you're going to go through something. You're going to go through like a dark night of the soul type of experience with you, which I think is just really beautiful, being able to hold that space for people. And then with your Leo rising, which is almost like, it's not the opposite of Scorpio, but it's, very different in the sense of Leo's ruled by the sun. And so how people perceive you is like very much as this, shining like energy, a leader. Leos are naturally charismatic, very creative. They have like a very childlike, playful energy. So what I love about that is like, even though you're doing this really deep work as who you are as a Scorpio sun, your Leo rising has you come across as this very fun, magnanimous, like magnetic person. So it's not like scary to approach you. It's like, oh, I'm really drawn to her. And then we get into the transformation. Does that resonate with you?
Oh my gosh, 1,000%. I think, like, just similar to what you said with Scorpios, people tend to be somewhat afraid of us for some reason, and I think society makes us into this stereotypical, like, witch girl, and I love that phrase for me, but I think the Leo kind of makes me a little bit
Mhm.
softer. I'm not this, like, emo goth girl that's, like, all about death and transformation. Like, they perceive me to be a little bit more, like, light and fluffy and airy and approachable because I think of the Leo rising.
Mhm. No, I think that's a wonderful
Mhm.
combination, like, softens you. I think exactly how I would put that there, and I think it makes it easier for you to be approached as well, and then you build that trust as that Scorpio sun, and they can dive into, like, their deepest,
Yeah.
conversations with you, and then finally, we have your Aquarius moon, which I personally love Aquarius, like, they're just so weird and wacky and, like, not from their time. They're rebellious, they're revolutionaries. It's just such a fun sign. So with your Aquarius moon, which is all about how you nurture yourself and how you're emotional, And in business astrology, we can actually look at how does your business nurture you and your emotions. So you really love unconventional methods. And so you might find yourself using a combination of intuition and science or intuition and logic. So it's not just one or the other. You're like, I'm going to bring these two things together, which I love too, because it's this ancient art of astrology with this modern business strategy. Is what I do in my business. So does that sound familiar to you that you bring in these ancient arts plus this modern day technology to really give people the transformation they're looking for?
Yeah, definitely. I think about my Aquarius as I'll do a lot of research on the options out there in running a
Mhm.
business in any situation or topic. And then I love to put my own original spin on it. I love to bring in my own intuition. And I think my approach to being a business coach is blending that masculine and feminine energy, which we're going to get into. So to me, like, similarly, in an Aquarius type way, I'm going to do the science part of it. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to take the action around what's already out there. I'm gonna learn from that, but I'm also gonna put my own spin and really sit with my own feelings so I can create that unique original blend.
I love that.
Yep.
And I'm very anti
Yeah.
cookie cutter as well. When you work with small business owners, you really want to say that I'm really attracted to this person's methods. They're not like anybody else out there. And that's why I want to work with them. And even better yet, something I tell my clients, you also want to repel those people who are not your people. So sometimes we have this tendency like, I want to work with everybody and I want everybody to like me. In the online world, that's not going to cut it. You got to really stake your claim and say, this is who I am, love me or hate me, but this is what I'm doing. And I think that's why you've been very successful in your business. Then I want to talk about your business and something that you mentioned earlier about the feminine and masculine energies in business. So, just really briefly, my story is I used to be like a CEO of a hospitality company. I was super masculine, like type A overachiever. I checked off all the boxes. I accomplished all the things. I had all the achievements. And then I suffered like a massive burnout, which had me really looking at like, what did I do? Who am I? Like, make sure that doesn't happen again. And I remember somebody said to me, one of the women I was working with to kind of cure my burnout was like, have you ever thought about tapping more into your feminine energy? And I looked at her and I was like, why would I do that? Why would I tap into my feminine energy? That does not sound helpful. Feminine energy is weak. Feminine energy does not help you succeed in life, in capitalism, in this economy, in this society. And that was really the first moment that I even had heard of feminine energy, to be quite honest, like as a woman. So I would love to hear, just for the listeners that might be hearing about this for the first time as well, like what is feminine energy? What is masculine energy? Why do we need both as women and as men and as anybody along that spectrum of, gender and everything else? Like, what's the deal?
This is such a good question, and the way you kind of related it in, like, not even realizing what feminine energy was initially, because I think a lot of times when people hear masculine and feminine, they literally think, like, black and white of, like, men and what they do and female and what they do, and it's slightly like that because you can see men doing more action-oriented things and women doing more internal thought type things. But it doesn't have to be like, "Oh, I need to start acting like a man," or "I need to start acting like a feminine." It's more about the 2 things for me is kind of going inward and going outward. So in order to create truly aligned action, you need to do both. If you are thinking about an idea, talking about it with your friends, coming up with a plan, and sitting with it, that's really helpful for you to then be able to take the correct action. However, sometimes we get stuck where we are afraid to do anything, and it's only an idea. We're like head in the cloud, we have these ideas, but we're not bringing them almost like down to earth to actually move. And then they get stuck. And then you get anxious because you're not moving at all. So that's if you're a little bit pushed towards the only feminine. You can go the opposite direction, which was you in your corporate world. And it was very much me when I was in a corporate job as well. It is so much action that we don't give ourselves a second to think, and everything that we're doing is, like, on a path that's just pushing us away from what we truly want to get to. So there is an alignment. We might be doing all of the work, but is the work making us happy? Is the work connecting to, like, what our purpose is? Are we feeling fulfilled by doing the work, or are we just doing the work? And so finding that balance in the middle is going to be so important where you are thinking through your ideas, you're tapping into your intuition, you're listening to your thoughts and to your body. When that feels really good, you then are taking action that makes sense specifically for you. Does that does that give a good idea?
Absolutely. And, it's funny what you're talking about with the masculine and feminine energy because business usually is considered very masculine. It's sales is masculine, marketing is masculine, product creation is masculine. And so what you see on the internet and what you see about people, how they make money is very masculine. However, you do need that feminine side of reflection and brainstorming and being open to receiving, like dealing with your issues about people hiring you and paying you money and being worth all of that as a woman and as a man as well. Yeah, so I think that really makes a ton of sense when it comes to business and life and everything else. And that's what I love about astrology too, is that astrology is actually very masculine. It's a container, it's a format, a structure. Like anything with structure is masculine. But then the interpretation of astrology and how you utilize it and the intuition that goes into it is very feminine. So I love that play of the two things, together, and that balance really helps you with that structure. And then, like you said, lets you know how to interpret it so that you can take action. And when I first started getting into like the spiritual world as well, people were talking about manifestation all the time, like law of
Mhm.
attraction, right? Oh my gosh, if I just sit on my couch and think about winning the lottery, I'll win the lottery. If I just sit on my couch and think about getting clients, I'll get clients. But what they forget is that the universal laws, you have to also take action. So, yes, attract, think, manifest, have that in your brain, all the positive thoughts, the affirmations, the meditations, and then get off the couch, and go do something about it. So it is that combination of masculine and feminine that really leads to the most successful businesses that I've seen personally.
Yes, that is so true. If you're going to manifest something, it needs to be in alignment with your internal self as well as your outward self. And you can't just think about getting something. You also have to move toward it. And if you are not really thinking about what you're moving toward, then you're just going to move toward and kind of pass it as well. So it does need to be both in order to manifest anything. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yes, that's a huge lesson I learned early on. It was really just a game changer for me because, again, the online world, it makes it seem like everybody's just sitting around, maybe posting on Instagram once a day and they're millionaires. And like, that's not the reality of it. It takes some time and effort and learning and experimenting. And it's not necessarily that it's hard or that it's impossible, but like most things in life, you do need to take some kind of action steps towards it. And then what you say, one of my favorite words is aligned action steps, so it's not just taking action steps because I look back at my life and I'm like, that's what I did. Get married, have the career, have the kid, have the house. I took the steps, but they weren't aligned with who I was and what I wanted. So that when I finally started looking at that, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually what I want instead. And so right now, my two biggest values in business are actually fun and learning. So if I'm having fun, I'm in the right place. If I'm learning something, I'm in the right place. And it doesn't mean it's not hard. Learning's hard. Even having fun can be hard. To write a party for people, it's hard. It takes work, but it's like I'm enjoying it. And so I think when things feel hard and heavy in business, that's when you're like, this is not the right path for me. If it feels hard and challenging, like, okay, I'm going to overcome this. I'm really excited about it. I'm even enjoying these obstacles. Then I think that can kind of give you that indication that you're on the right path.
Yes, completely. And enjoyment is such a big part of it because if you are taking the correct aligned action, if you are feeling really balanced with your energy, you're going to enjoy what you're doing and you're going to feel so much more fulfilled. So if you are doing all of the work and it's not feeling good, let's tap into your feminine. If you are coming up with all of the ideas but you're feeling stuck, let's tap into your
Awesome.
masculine.
I love that. It sounds so simple, but that's why we also need people like you who really understand what does that look like in a modern sense. Because again, we can read all these books and talk to all these people, and it's like, well, great, I'm in this modern world though. How do I make that happen, today? Which
Yeah.
brings me basically to talk about your second chapter. And I would love to hear just more about, kind of what got you to where you are now and a little bit about your journey.
I definitely consider my life in the 2 chapters, so this really is my second chapter that I'm in right now, and my first chapter, after college, I went to school, I got a degree in communication and psychology, and I went right into the corporate world because that's what you do, that's what you're expected to do, And I was at my first job for about 10 months, and that company closed down. And I immediately switched into a different corporate company doing marketing. And I was there for 3 years. So almost 4 years of corporate work after school. And probably 2 years into that, I started getting really, really anxious with my work. And I had never felt anxiety really before. I didn't quite know what it was at the time. Panic attacks were happening more regularly. I officially got my own first apartment by myself, and I was feeling very, very uneasy with my daily work. So then when I'd go home, I'd be alone and I'd be stressed and by myself. And I started getting more regular panic attacks. And because I was having these panic attacks, and then I was getting into work in a very stressful environment, my team was very misaligned with what we were supposed to be doing, what the priorities were. There was a lot of expectations that we could take on 50 things additionally than our actual roles, what we were getting paid for. And I think the Leo rising kind of pushed me to approach my team and approach my manager and say, we're really stressed out and you're not helping. And I left that day after having that conversation and I was, like, physically sick. I took on everybody's anxiety and stress from my entire team, and then I was physically sick for 2 straight weeks. I had to take off of work. I couldn't drive. I was not eating. I went to the doctor. They put me on anxiety medication. I went to the therapist a couple times. Like, it was the craziest 2 weeks of my life, and it was a true rock bottom that was so helpful for me to realize that I am not doing anything that I want to be doing. Not helping myself, not helping the people that I want to be helping. And I wanted more freedom, I wanted more purpose, I wanted more fulfillment, and so from that point, I stayed in that corporate job for about a year and a half later, but I immediately was like, "What can I do that's different than this?" And at the time, I was in a yoga teacher training program. I found spirituality to be really fun and entertaining and exciting in my life, and I was learning so much about me and how to communicate with others better. And once I found out about the virtual assistant work, just a couple months later, I was able to book out my services, quit my corporate job, and then move into full time entrepreneurship. And very quickly after that, move into coaching. So that big transition from chapter one to chapter two was me in the corporate world to entrepreneur Shannon. And it's a leap that I recommend most people take, and I'm sure you, knowing your spirituality, would probably agree.
Oh, absolutely. And that's was, another synchronicity that we had as being in the VA world. When I left my career, my big thing was like, I don't know what I want to do. Actually, at the time, same thing, panic attacks, anxiety, depression, insomnia, all sorts of things. You're fine. Everything's
Good.
fine. I'm like, "Nothing's fine. My life is falling apart. You don't understand." And so that's when I got into spirituality. So I'm like, well, the medical doctors have nothing for me. Let me go to the psychics. Let me go to the tarot card readers. Let me go to the astrologers. Let me go get Reiki and acupuncture and all of these things to try and figure out what is going on with my body because the medical world was just like, not being helpful at that point. So that was definitely the path that I started going down. But my big thing was not knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I did not want to have to go into an office ever again. I wanted to be able to work from wherever. And so I thought, okay, well, that you're going to need to learn how to do online business. So I was brick and mortar business, kind of like you, brick and mortar marketing, right? So it's like, how do I translate these skills world and look at learning how to be a VA, whether it's marketing VA, tech VA, Pinterest VA, real estate VA. There's so many different types of VAs you can be is like a great education into how the online business world works. And then with your skills, having those degrees in communication and experience in corporate, you got hired by clients who I'm sure very quickly were like, "Oh, you're amazing. I need you to take me to the next level," right? Because you had the experience, and so a lot of people that start off as VAs, it's awesome. It's a great place to start, but they might not have that business experience or that corporate experience. And I think that's like a little bit of a secret sauce with people like you, like me, a lot of people I interview is like we have that business experience, we have that life experience, and then we're kind of coming back into this world that's new for us, like the online business world might be new. So we're learning, but then very quickly people are like, oh, you know what you're talking about. Let's go to the next level. So for me, it was like VA to tech VA to operations manager to director of operations within like 2 years. And that's what I do like in my day job as a director of operations. And then, of course, the business astrology is my wonderful business on my own. So I love that combination of just knowing how to, like, I know how to do the most mundane things, no problem. But then I also can help you reach your, quarter four goals as well. And I'm sure you're in a similar position, kind of more from a marketing and sales perspective.
Yes, the VA part of it and the coaching, I love blending it together because just like you said, somebody's got to do the admin work. I personally love that stuff. Like I'm planning my sister's wedding right now. I got the spreadsheet out. I have everything scheduled and organized and I'm keeping up with her. I'm basically pretending like she's my client. The strategy part of it is really important if you actually want to grow. If you want to push all of your administrative work off onto somebody, that's fine. And that is what a VA is for. However, for me, I like to truly be your partner in this and to be actually giving you the guidance because I have the background on having my own business, being in the corporate world, my communication, marketing experience, everything kind of blends together so I can help you in not just a administrative way, but also in a coaching you way to get to your next level.
Now, what question just popped up for me as you were talking, I think people would really be love to hear about is that people think about hiring a VA. And it's like, oh, my life's gonna be so much easier. I'm just gonna hire a VA. But it's like you also need to know what you want the VA to be doing, how you want them to be doing it. So, do you
For
have any
sure.
kind of suggestions for people that might want to hire their first VA because their business is starting to grow, or just with their lifestyle, they can't put that many hours in? Like, what maybe the top two things they should have in place before they start considering hiring a VA?
Okay, so what they should probably do before hiring a VA is write out a list of the things that they love doing daily and the things that they don't like doing daily. Your time is incredibly valuable as the CEO, as the owner of your business, and you only have certain hours in the day to be working on this. And that should really, really be focused specifically on your products and our services that you create and offer, your connection with your audience. Everything else can fall to somebody else. So I think oftentimes I see a lot of people saying, I don't have enough time in the day. I want to hire a VA, but then they don't want to let go and they want to keep that control. That's very normal. If you own this, this is your baby, this is your business. However, there is a way to start it where you're giving small items that you're really not a fan of doing to somebody else. You can keep the big things, but it is about, building that relationship. But I'd say if you want to look at the things you love doing, keep doing those and pass off the things that you don't really want to do. And then there's one other thought that I have about that, and that is maybe you do have the time, but you don't have the skill. If you don't have the skills, let's hire a VA or very specific service provider that's going to help you with those skills so you are not trying to learn these new skills and figure it out, whether it's a virtual assistant, a social media manager, a tech, VA, SEO, marketing, whatever it is. Let's outsource that so your priorities are really just the connection with your services and your products, and that's it.
Absolutely. And I get sometimes we get pushback from people that are like, well, I don't have enough money to do that, or I'm not making enough money to do that. And that's totally a valid question. What I usually say back to them is that, like you just said, your time is money. What could you be doing that actually makes money for your business? Could you be going to a networking event? Could you be calling up an old client and see if they want to rebook you? Could you be getting testimonials from people? What things could you be doing? Could you be on Instagram DMing people and making those sales? So it's like not that you have to spend that money up front. It's more again kind of the idea of manifestation and taking action. Don't hire a VA and then be like, oh, now I'm going to take 3 hour naps. Hopefully, eventually you'll be able to do that. It's more like I'm going to hire a VA, and with that time that they're saving me, which could be 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, is perfectly fine to start low. What am I going to do with that time that's actually going to produce income or produce clients or whatever in my business?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I would love to dive into next is that, okay, so we've got the VA part. We got the nuts and bolts of what you did, how you got into your second chapter. And then now you've evolved into this person that has the VA skills as well as being able to coach people spiritually. And so you mentioned in your form that you really love using yoga, meditation, and tarot cards. Like, what I would just love to know how you use that in your coaching for people that are listening.
Yeah. So I think that's something that's a little bit different for people that are looking for a business coach. Similar to how you said in the beginning, kind of about niching down to, only working with certain types of people. If we can niche down what we offer, the type of person is going to come to you that is meant to be there versus saying, like, I'm only working with spiritual entrepreneurs. I tend to say, my coaching is spiritual. If you're into that, come work with me. So, in my coaching, most of it is the talk therapy. We're having these one on one sessions. It's a little bit elevated more than that because of the spiritual elements. I tend to get downloads that are claircognizant, so it's usually a knowing. A lot of times I'll say something on a video recording that I don't even remember talking about. And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you brought that up to me." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. Where did that come from?" I don't know why that popped into my head, but a lot of what our conversations are going to be, they're going to be very intuitively driven, whatever feels best to be coming out. And then I also like to pull tarot cards, oracle cards during the sessions or throughout the week for my clients just to give them, an idea or a goal or something to be moving towards or a reminder from their spirit guides like, hey, you are on track, or let's try and move things around, or this energy might be coming through this week. So just be aware of it, be cognizant of it. And then meditations is a big one for me as well. I love to send them little custom meditations. So if they're in a session with me, and they're feeling a lot of comparison and they're on social media a little bit too much. Let's have a meditation where we can take you out of that element and we're going to work on most likely your solar plexus, your third chakra, so you can gain some confidence and power in yourself and get that boost that you need. So I love incorporating those whenever they feel good. And then I teach yoga on the side.
Do you do a certain type of yoga?
It's vinyasa, so dancey flow, there's music playing, and it's a nice vibe. It's very much an all levels class. It's not like in a yoga studio, but I like a really good midday stretch for everybody that's been sitting at their desk and typing all day.
Absolutely. I just found Yoga Nidra recently, which I had never heard of before. I was looking, I think, for like a power nap on that app called Insight Timer, which is a great app if you're looking for meditations or sleep or courses, like whatever. And it's like Yoga Nidra power nap. What is Yoga Nidra? And I am obsessed with Yoga Nidra. They also call it NSDR, like non sleep deep rest. So it's like this yogic nap where basically you just close your eyes 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever. And usually you don't fall asleep. You're just kind of in that in between phase between sleep and wakefulness. And so I get up because before, if I took like a 20-minute nap, it takes me like 20 minutes to shut my brain off anyways. Didn't take a nap at all. My brain's just been, thinking the whole
Mhm.
time. But this said like shuts it down. You really get to rest, but then you're not groggy. You're not like, oh, I'm gonna go sleep for 2 more hours, and you can just go about your day. Have you had an experience with using those?
Yes, I love yoga nidra. I've only done it in a group setting, which I highly recommend. It means yoga sleep. So it's like a very mindful, resting, relaxation. It's similar to a yin yoga.
Very feminine, and these are very feminine forms of yoga as well, because yoga can also take a very masculine. You got power yoga, Ashtanga, like a lot of those forms that can be very
Yeah.
masculine, and then the yin yoga and the yoga nidra. And I will say this too, because a lot of, I think, type A people like myself are, again, like meditation. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna sit still for 20 minutes and think of nothing. But these are really great ways to relax the nervous system, get out of burnout, get out of those panic attacks, and just rest your body, because after a burnout, after a transition, after, a corporate, like you leave your job and you start your own business, your body needs rest. Like, and it's almost surprising how much rest your body needs at that point.
Yes, completely. Like, I actually have to schedule in time that I'm going to rest and relax and work on my business, or it doesn't get done. It just gets passed by. Time is money. Things are just continuing to flow.
Mhm.
I wanted to bring up earlier how beneficial it is if you are somebody that needs to sit in with your feminine or your masculine energy more and you are struggling to figure out how to do that, or you're not scheduling the time in, that is like a huge purpose of hiring somebody, whether it is a virtual assistant or it's a coach, to actually kind of force you to do the work. For me personally, we're going to get extra deep during those conversations. You're going to tap into your feminine energy, whether you want to or not, because I'm into that transformation. I'm going to push a couple layers down during those sessions. So, whether it's yoga nidra or it's having a conversation with your best friend or with your coach, talking through your ideas, it's going to really help you gain more insight into who you are and what your body and your mind are telling you so you can actually be achieving that aligned action.
It makes me think of two things. So, someone I think who is actively in burnout or recovering from burnout, the chakra that I think would be most helpful for them, let me know if you agree, would be like a root chakra meditation because you're in that
Mhm.
fight or flight, unsafe, something's chasing me, even though nothing's chasing you. So, I did a lot of root chakra meditations to feel safe, to feel like nothing's chasing me. It's okay. Like we can calm down. We just need to figure out how to work through this and how to heal from it. But nothing actually is chasing me. I am safe. And that really helped me a lot. And then you mentioned earlier about people hiring experts, like things that they don't have skills for. Entrepreneurs are looking for clients to hire them for their expertise. But a lot of times
Mhm.
we're like, oh, but I'm not going to hire anybody who's better at this than I am. I'm just going to do it myself or not do it at all because whatever. You want clients to hire you to help them in the things that they're not good at. So you also want to like show that you're hiring people that are good at the things that you're not good at. And that's kind of that cycle of business. I think it just balances the way the nature and universe works. I think that's even a better impetus for people to hire somebody because it's like, oh, I want people to hire me for my expertise. So I'm also going to do that, of course, if budget and time and all that kind of stuff, fits into the role.
Hiring other people, investing in those that are going to be able to help you because you can't do it all yourself. For me, regularly, like things that I invest in tend to be more toward my feminine energy. How am I going to balance my energy, my chakras? Am I getting Reiki done? I regularly work with a psychic medium. That's the things that I don't do well on my own. And so I hire somebody and I book with somebody and I pay someone to help me get into more of that feminine relaxed state so I can show up in my business 100%.
And speaking of which,
More.
I would love to segue into talking about your upcoming retreat that is in
Yes.
October.
Yeah. October 5th. So this will be my second one of the year. I definitely want to do future ones as well. The one in April was with my good friend Heather, and it was just wonderful. It was a self-discovery workshop. We brought in multiple service providers. We had it at a beautiful sanctuary, and there was, I think, 19 of us that attended. We were so shocked in the best way that so many people signed up and wanted to be there and they had such a good time. So then this one in the fall will be a little bit different. Rather than self-discovery, it's going to be a little more going inward in a communication aspect. So think about your throat chakra, your fifth chakra, and finding ways that we can communicate and connect with ourselves as well as connecting better with others and our spirit guides and loved ones on the other side. So everything is around how to communicate, which the theme kind of came together because I have so many planets in my third house of communication. That's where my sun is. My
You've
life is
got
around
Venus,
communication.
Mercury, your North Node, which your North Node is your
Mhm.
purpose in astrology. So communication, connecting with others is absolutely a huge part of your purpose. Then having Mercury
Yeah.
in your third house, which is where it's at home. It's at home in Gemini and Virgo, which Gemini rules the third house. So yeah, communication is like has to be your jam just by your chart.
So I was like, I think this retreat feels really good and it's going to be a lot smaller. I think we can fit maybe like a max of 9 people in the space. And we're gonna do some yoga to really connect with our bodies. I have a full spiritual workshop on connecting to your spirit guides, connecting to yourself and others. And then my good friend Julie's gonna come in and do a psychic medium seance for the fall vibes. And everybody that has ever met or had a session with Julie is always blown away. So I'm really, really excited for that and to see who comes through and what comes out that will be helpful for the collective.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we'll put some more information about that in the show notes so people can check that out and hopefully attend if they're in the
Perfect.
Northeast area. But that's what I love about the Northeast too, is that Philadelphia is like what 2 hours from New York, an hour and a half from DC, an hour and a half from Baltimore. I mean, you can be in a lot of different locations and still make it work for a retreat. So we'll definitely put that information in there. And then I had a really scandalous, controversial question that I wanted to ask you. What is
Okay.
your favorite tarot deck?
I only have 1 tarot deck, and it's my
That's some
favorite,
self
so
control.
I think I might have one other, but they're, like, really tiny cards, and they don't look the same, I don't know, but the book that I've been learning on for the past maybe, like, 4 or 5 years or so is the Philly Tarot deck, and I love it because the drawings are all in alignment with
Oh
Philadelphia.
my
There's
god.
some relation. So, like, the Fool is the Philadelphia fanatic. The World card with, like, the 4 I don't even know what the real cards look like, but mine has It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, their characters around it on the world. We have Gritty, which is the Flyers mascot, as I think he's the devil. There's so many funny ones, and it's really cool because it just feels even more personal, but the designs are beautiful. The little booklet is written really well, and so that is my favorite deck because I know nothing else.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And you just mentioned Gritty is possibly the devil card, which made me think about the Jersey Devil, that urban legend in Philadelphia, where about it's almost like the Sasquatch or the Yeti or whatever else. It's this creature that lives in the woods in New Jersey. And I was curious if the devil was actually the Jersey Devil, but it sounds like it's a different mascot.
Yeah, I feel like I should look that up and see a little bit more about it because, yeah, it's Gritty on ours, and I do think it makes sense because Gritty is really he's a scary mascot, but we love him. We love him in
That's
Philly.
awesome. Perfect. So now I wanted to hop into what I like to call my vanilla ice segment because I love problem solving. It's something that's in my chart as well. And so my vanilla ice segment is my little joke about, it's lyrics from Ice Ice Baby. You got a problem, you'll all solve it. And I asked Shannon to bring me a problem from her business. And did you want to kind of dive into that a little bit, Shannon, so we can solve that on the call?
Yes. So we talked about some spiritual elements that I add in and incorporate into my coaching. I really, really want to get more into astrology. I'm learning more about it, and I can offer like mini readings to friends and family, which I've been doing, but I don't know how to blend it with my coaching. So, do you have any insight onto maybe like how you've blended it together? I think would be really helpful just getting a little bit of insight on that.
Sure. And I love that question because I've been into astrology very hobby level since I was a teenager. It's like I knew my sun sign and then probably nothing else. So then when I went through my burnout, I started working with astrologers because I'm like, what is going on with me? How did this happen? And also, I completely lost my identity when I left my career. So I literally was like, who am I without being a CEO? So I really was trying to figure out who I am even before I put all of these mass on top of me. And in addition, I'm a Gemini sun. So after, 37 years of existence, I was literally like 97 different people. And I had no idea which one I actually liked to be and which one was just me being something to either be safe or to, get ahead in life or get along or whatever it might be.
Right.
Astrology was that self discovery tool for me to be like, this is who you are. Now, obviously, we have free will, like nothing's predetermined, but it's like these are your tendencies. Now, how can you build a life and a business? So when I got into astrology for self-discovery, and then I was looking online, so I love to learn. Again, I have a Gemini, I love to learn all the things. And it's like business astrology. I was like, oh my gosh, you can combine business, my other favorite thing, with astrology, like this really cool, super weird thing that I'm really getting into and bring them together. I was so ecstatic to find that combination. Coaching. So you obviously do business coaching, but with a spiritual element to it. There are people who are like website designers, launch managers, social media managers that use astrology to find out what kind of content their people can produce the best, what the ideal posting times would be, what the best launch time would be. Like avoid Mercury retrograde basically is kind of the idea there. One of the biggest notes. But as far as bringing astrology into more of your business and for anybody else out there listening, is I will recommend number one, three books that I think are amazing. One is called Astrology for Yourself Workbook. And that's really what got me started in the self discovery. It really just step by step walks you through your chart and the interpretation. So you can really start to understand how to read a chart, how to interpret a chart. And then, of course, you can take that to your clients at a later date and time. There's another book called Astrology for Real Life that I think just breaks it down and makes it so simple. And so that, again, you can apply it to your day to day life and really understand your chart. And then, speaking of masculine and feminine energies, because we live in a patriarchal society, astrology is very patriarchal, mythology is very patriarchal. There's only like one goddess in the whole, pantheon, which is Venus, and there's a lot of asteroid goddesses, but it's like very patriarchal. So there's a book called The 12 Faces of the Goddess, which is actually a feminist interpretation of the astrological signs. And that's a really great thing to read to bring a little bit more of that balance in. So you have the masculine and the feminine. And then for you personally, obviously, you have a podcast that's coming out that's called Collab and Gab. So I am assuming by that that you love to collaborate. So my other
Mhm.
suggestion for people, just like we talked about VAs, and if they do something that you're not good at doing. So let's say you're amazing at all the things you do, and you're like, I really want to bring astrology into my work a little bit more. It can either be, let me read some books, let me figure out how to bring those interpretations in, let me see what works, or it could be collaborating with someone like me, like, hey, Hunter, could we do something together where I'm offering this to my clients? And then if they're like, hey, I'd like to bring astrology more into it, we have some kind of joint venture agreement where, you're bringing me clients, I'm bringing you clients, and we're sharing, the proceeds. That's what I love about online business too, is it's like we don't have to learn all the things. We can really
Mhm.
learn what we love to do and what was interesting to us. And then it's like, hey, I don't have time to learn about astrology in between all these awesome retreats that I'm doing. Let me talk to Hunter and see what kind of arrangement we can make. And that can look like guest teaching, obviously guest podcasting, just like we're doing now. That can look like a joint venture where, we're putting an offer out there, the two of us, and just like you did with your friend for the retreat, that's like a joint venture. So those would be my suggestions. Those books would be really, really helpful to help you understand astrology. And then you can look at how you can kind of personalize it based on your business and your philosophies. And then the easiest thing, of course, in the meantime, is just like hire somebody who has that or work with somebody who has that, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. This was so helpful. I'm gonna write down the books. I really want to be diving so much deeper. Even some of the things that you were talking about, I was like, I've never even heard about this. The patriarchal part, I'm like, whoa, that's like a whole other element that I don't even know. So this sounds really exciting for me. And you're right, I can make so many more collaborations with those that are doing things that could help my clients that I don't necessarily need to be doing as well. So I'm definitely a big proponent of recommendations. If my clients come to me and they're like, who should I go to for a website or blah, 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 things like that, this would be a really, really cool aspect to have that collaboration. So thank you.
Yeah, and for me, like, coming from the hospitality industry, that was, like, our bread and butter because 'cause you're doing your sister's wedding right now, like, how many vendors go into a wedding? So if I choose the venue, well, which caterer should I work with? Which photographer? Which DJ? Which florist? And usually it's like, if they all know each other, then that makes it so much easier to work together because they have a good working relationship, and I can just plan my wedding and plan my event versus having to handhold everybody and get them to all connect. So that's really where I get the collaboration from. For me as well, I have a ton of placements in my 11th house, which is the house of groups, collaborations, and connections. So that's how I built my business is off of that.
Cool. Well, then it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Which is why I love the name of your podcast when you told me. So, yes, so
Okay.
those are some great ways to do that. Now, I will say, in general, from a business astrology perspective, some areas you can look at would be the 10th house on your chart, which is the
Mhm.
house of career and public persona. Then you can also look at your midheaven angle, which is the MC in your chart. And that's like what starts your 10th house. That really gives you a good indication of like the ideal career and business. And then I also do like money and abundance readings. So, like how you receive, which you can look at your second house, your eighth house, and your Venus to see how you really receive, how you earn money, your own money, plus how you use other people's money in your business. So there's a lot of different like focuses you could have. in the chart. And I love to tell my clients, like, I literally could do a reading for you probably every single day and talk about something different in your chart. What am I learning now? What is there for me to move towards currently? And then 3 months later, a year later, you're like, oh, now I'm into this now. And it's just always something to learn, which is really what I love about it.
Totally. I did a reading for my friend maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I barely scratched the surface, and we sat for like 3 hours and talked about it. So just like you said, even with just the natal chart, I can do multiple sessions on like every single house, every single planet, and specifically for you. And I love that. I love the deepness about it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because you've got the natal chart, like you said. You can even
Hmm.
run a business chart about their business, what their business personality looks like, and then comparing them to their business and what are they supporting their business in? What might they be lacking? What do they need to bring in their business? What do they need to learn to support their business? Then, of course, the planets are moving. So at any given day, there's certain energy. There's also progressed planets, which is kind of like your evolution, like how you're evolving in this lifetime. I mean, so there's just a ton you can talk about. It's unbelievable,
Yeah.
like you said. So super fun. I could nerd out on it forever, but I would love to kind of close up this beautiful chat that we've had. I want to do a card pull for you. And so,
Great.
unlike you, I'm a Gemini and I have a problem with having way too many tarot card decks. And I even give away several every year and I still end up bringing them back in. I love
Gosh.
the artwork. I'm definitely a big fan of artwork and I love the mythology and the archetypes and like the symbolism is really what I'm very attracted to. For you, since your question for the Vanilla Ice segment was about bringing more astrology into your business, I actually chose the Zodiac Tarot for you. So this is a full tarot deck, major and minor arcana with zodiac connections. So I'm gonna do the whole Zodiac Tarot deck.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So I figured it would go really in line with your question, and so I'm just gonna do a little shuffly action here and see what message we have for you to kind of end this chat. And then, of course, for people listening, feel free to take this message. Sometimes people will pick a card, read the interpretation, then you can like journal about it. Kind of, you can meditate on it. Sometimes you can write it down like on a post-it note as like an affirmation for the day or for the week. So kind of, what's my focus? I think it just helps when there's a million things to do as a human being, as a business owner. It's like, what can I focus on this week?
Yeah.
So,
For me, I tend to do anything needs to be like spoken out loud communication, like journaling, writing things down, not nearly as like beneficial for me unless I'm like speaking
yeah.
it. That's what I tend to do. Once you say this, I might speak to myself about it for
Mhm.
a bit.
But the card
Yep.
that
Well,
was
where's
selected for you is the Hierophant. Okay. All right. So the Hierophant is card number 5, as a card in which crisis is experienced for the first time. After the stability of 4, 5 makes our reality waver and places us before spirituality, or at least before our search for deeper meaning in things. The Hierophant creates a bridge between the sky and the earth, between what is habitual, real, manifest, and what lies high in the skies. So it seems strange to associate Taurus, a sign connected to the pleasures of life, with such a spiritual card. But Taurus knows about ephemeral and therefore fully lives in the present moment, enjoying and satisfying the senses. Taurus has high values that are manifested in reality. And the key words for this card are faith, search for spirituality, the message that comes from the spiritual world, which I think just
thank
sums
you.
up our entire conversation that we had today about basically making a bridge between logic and spirituality, making a bridge between the life that's expected of you and the life that's actually the right life for you. I think that's a beautiful just confirmation of everything we talked about today.
Yes. I agree.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I will look forward to connecting with you some more later.
Thanks, Hunter. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to shoot me a message on TikTok or connect with me on YouTube. Links can be found below in the show notes. Until next time, keep building your business with mastery and a sprinkling of magic.